We are back today with a brand new book. It's a fantastic book called Jim Corbett Omnibus. You might have heard of Jim Corbett. He lived in India for a lifetime, perhaps. And the Jim Corbett National Park, which is in Uttarakhand or somewhere, is named after him. He was a naturalist and he worked here. He was a lover of forests and tigers, and he was a hunter, and he loved animals and particularly tigers, which are so magnificent that he loved them, adored them. And he has written many novels, short stories, etc., about tigers. And the first of it, he published under the title The Man-Eaters of Kumaon. Kumaon is a mountain region in the northeast of India. And this novel was titled The Man-Eaters of Kumaon. And I have gone for that movie when I was very young, and I don't remember anything about it because we are all attracted by the words tiger, man-eater, and etc. And well, I don't know what I saw, but that made Jim Corbett very famous. Hollywood purchased the rights for it and made a movie. It was not such a well-taken movie. This was in 1920s or 30s or something. And then Jim Corbett has written many books and novels. And in this book, which I have got, this volume, the first section of it is titled Man-Eaters of Kumaon. So there are several tigers mentioned here. The one is the Champavat Man-Eater. 2, Robin. 3, the Chowgad Tigers. Next, the Bachelor of Fawalgad. Next is Mohan Man-Eater. Next is the Fish of My Dreams. The Kanda Man-Eater. The Pipal Pani Tiger. The Thak Man-Eater. And Just Tigers. About 8 or 9 different compilations. And his style is very direct, engaging, and it is based on first-hand experience. And it is as if he's talking to you so that you get into it the moment you start with it. So we start with the introduction to this volume. The introduction is written by Ruskin Bond. We have heard of Ruskin Bond and we have read some of his books earlier. So I start the introduction. In the long run, the pen is mightier than the gun. Most of Jim Corbett's hunting exploits involving man-eating tigers and leopards took place in the 1920s. And by the time he was 50, he had acquired a reputation as a good shot and a skillful tracker and shikari. But it was only when he published his first book, The Man-Eaters of Kumaon, in 1944, by which time he was in his late 60s, only then he became truly famous, both in India and abroad. So successful was his book of true adventures in the jungles of North India that Hollywood snapped up the film rights for that book and turned out a film of the same name. But they confined it to a single man-eater, and unfortunately they used a tiger which was a circus tiger on loan, a very tame one, and could not hold a candle for a real tiger of Kumaon. So that was a letdown as per Ruskin Bond. So Ruskin Bond, who is giving us the introduction, says he was a schoolboy when Man-Eaters of Kumaon was first published. And I remember reading it with mounting excitement, for the stories were so obviously authentic. true in every detail and told in a natural, free-flowing, unadorned style that brought out the terror and suspense of every encounter with those great predators of our hills and forests. And today, almost 70 years later, I read them again. That is to say, Ruskin Bond says he read those books again after 70 years, and they are as fresh as ever. And that's what we are going to do now, to read these books fresh. So what is the secret of these books that they should be selling in hundreds of thousands 70 years after they were first published? Hunting big game is no longer fashionable as a pastime. It is not even legal. There are not many tigers left in the world, and we seldom hear of man-eaters terrorizing districts. But 70 to 100 years ago, the big cats, tigers, leopards, and even lions held sway over large parts of the country. And when a man-eater arrived on the scene, entire villages were affected by its depredations. A tiger with a liking for human flesh would become a serial killer, stalking and carrying off men and women at work in their fields, preventing children from attending school, preying on travelers and pilgrims, and making certain roads or footpaths almost unusable. This conflict between man and beast is captured vividly by Corbett. His knowledge of the habits of wild animals is matched by his sympathy for the simple hill folk who find themselves at the mercy of the larger predators. He lives amongst them, eats with them, assesses the situation, and then goes out into the jungle to track down the killer. And he goes alone. A companion with a weapon is only a hindrance, liable to get in the way and cause an accident. Corbett prefers to be on his own and on foot. On foot, Corbett can track a tiger by following its pug marks, by examining broken twigs and branches, by seeing a blood trail, by picking up bits and pieces of the victim's clothes or even body parts. On foot and alone, he can also get a better shot at the tiger when he does encounter it. Shooting from a swaying elephant presents a problem, as does shooting from a machan or tree platform. Machan is they build a platform high up on a tree so that the hunter is safe up there while the tiger is on the floor of the forest. Corbett puts himself at risk when he does this, especially if the tiger is wounded. A wounded tiger will turn on its tormentor, and a man-eater has little or no fear of humans. Having discovered how easy it is to kill such puny creatures. But Corbett has grown up in the hills and jungles, and he is as sure-footed as his quarry. Sometimes he is accompanied by his little dog, Robin, who has a whole chapter to himself in this book. Corbett is essentially a lonely man. Everyone likes him, admires him, but he has few intimate or close friends. Robin is his best friend. He tells us, brave, loyal, and affectionate. What better friend could a lonely hunter ask for than a good dog? As a writer, Corbett is master of creating suspense. He will tell us about the man-eater and the hundreds of good people it has killed and consumed. He will then take the reader to the place where it has been most active. He will describe the pursuit, the part taken by the villagers, the part taken by himself, and then there is a final shot as the man-eater falls to the hunter's well-aimed bullet. All is told in a clear, simple, natural style, the style of a Bond storyteller. No wonder then, when a copy of Man-Eaters of Kumaon was placed in our school library, there was a scramble to read it. Corbett's exploits brought him fame as a hunter. His book turned him into a legend. That's a nice sentence. So that is Ruskin Bond's introduction. Now Corbett himself has written about this book a note. Let me see how long it is. Sometimes they make it very long and we get tired of reading it. Wow, it is about 4 pages or 5 pages long. So this is Jim Corbett's note as an introduction to the book. As many of the stories in this book are about man-eating tigers, it is perhaps desirable to explain why these animals develop man-eating tendencies. A man-eating tiger is a tiger that has been compelled through stress of circumstances beyond its control to adopt a diet alien to it. The stress of circumstances is, in 9 out of 10 cases, wounds, and in the 10th, it is old age. The wound that caused a particular tiger to take to man-eating might be the result of a carelessly fired shot and failure to follow up and recover the wounded animal, or the result of the tiger having lost its temper when killing a porcupine. Human beings are not the natural prey of tigers, and it is only when tigers have been incapacitated through wounds or old age that, in order to live, they are compelled to take a diet of human flesh. A tiger, when killing its natural prey, which it does either by stalking or lying in wait for it, depends for the success of its attack on its speed and to a lesser extent on the condition of its teeth and claws. When therefore a tiger is suffering from one or more painful wounds, or when its teeth are missing or defective, and its claws are worn out, and it's unable to catch the animal it has been accustomed to eating, it is driven by necessity to killing human beings. The changeover from animal to human flesh is, I believe, in most cases accidental. As an illustration of what I mean by accidental, I quote the case of the Muktesar man-eating tigress. This tigress, a comparatively young animal, in an encounter with a porcupine, lost an eye and got some 50 quills, varying in length from 1 to 9 inches, embedded in the arm and under the pad of her right foreleg. Several of those quills, after striking a bone, had doubled back in the form of a U, the point and the broken off end being quite close together. Suppurating sores formed where she endeavored to extract the quills with her teeth, and while she was lying up in a thick patch of grass, striving and licking her wounds, a woman selected this particular patch of grass to cut as fodder for her cattle. At first the tigress took no notice, but when the woman had cut the grass right up to where she was lying, the tigress struck once, the blow crushing the woman's skull. One blow from the tigress' paw and the woman's skull was broken. Death was instantaneous, for when found the following day, she was grasping her sickle with one hand and holding a tuft of grass, which she was about to cut when struck. With the other, leaving the woman lying where she had fallen, the tigress limped off for a distance of over a mile and took refuge in a little hollow under a fallen tree. 2 days later, a man came up to chip firewood off this fallen tree, and the tigress who was lying on the far side killed him. The man fell across the tree, and as he had removed his coat and shirt, the tigress had clawed his back when killing him. It is impossible that the smell of the blood trickling down his body as he hung across the bole of the tree first gave an idea that he was something that she could satisfy her hunger with. However that may be, before leaving him, she ate a small portion from his back. A day after, she killed her third victim deliberately and without having received any provocation. Thereafter, she became an established man-eater and killed 24 people before she was finally killed. So she became a man-killer by accident. A tiger on a fresh kill, or a wounded tiger or a tigress with small cubs will occasionally kill human beings who disturb them. But these tigers cannot, by any stretch of imagination, be called man-eaters, though they are often so called. Personally, I would give a tiger the benefit of the doubt once and once again before classing it as a man-eater. And whenever possible, I would subject the alleged victim to a post-mortem before letting the kill go down on the records as the kill of a tiger or a leopard, as the case might be. This subject of post-mortems of human beings alleged to have been killed by either tigers or leopards or others in the plains by wolves or hyenas is of great importance. For though I refrain from giving instances, I know of cases where deaths have been wrongly ascribed to carnivora. It's a popular fallacy that all man-eaters are old and mangy. The mange being attributed to the excess of salt in human flesh. The mange being attributed to the excess of salt in human flesh. I am not competent to give any opinion on the relative quantity of salt in human or animal flesh, but I can and I do assert that a diet of human flesh, so far from having an injurious effect on the coat of the man-eaters, has quite the opposite effect. For all man-eaters I have seen have had remarkably fine coats. Another popular belief in connection with man-eaters is that the cubs of these animals automatically become man-eaters. This is quite a reasonable supposition, but it is not borne out by actual facts. And the reason why the cubs of man-eaters do not themselves become man-eaters is that human beings are not the natural prey of tigers or of leopards. A cub will eat whatever its mother provides, and I have even known of tiger cubs assisting their mothers to kill human beings. But I do not know of a single instance of a cub, after it had left the protection of its parent, or after the parent had been killed, of taking to killing human beings. In the case of human beings killed by carnivora, the doubt is often expressed as to whether the animal responsible for the kill is the tiger or leopard. As a general rule, to which I have seen no exceptions, tigers are responsible for all kills that take place in daylight, and leopards are responsible for all kills that take place in the dark. So that's something that tigers are responsible for all kills that take place in the daylight, and leopards are responsible for all kills that take place in the dark. Both animals are semi-nocturnal forest dwellers, have much the same habits, employ similar methods of killing, and both are capable of carrying their human victims for long distances. It would be natural, therefore, to expect them to hunt at the same hours and that they do not do so is due to the difference in courage of the two animals. When a tiger becomes a man-eater, it loses all fear of human beings, and as human beings move about more freely in the day than they do at night, it is able to secure its victims during daylight hours, and there is no necessity for it to visit their habitations at night. A leopard, on the other hand, even after it has killed scores of human beings, never loses its fear of man. And as it is unwilling to face human beings in daylight, it secures its victims when they are moving about at night or by breaking into their houses at night. Owing to these characteristics of the two animals, namely the one loses its fear of human beings and kills in the daylight, while the other remains in fear and kills in the dark, man-eating tigers are easier to shoot than man-eating leopards. The frequency with which a man-eating tiger kills depends on the supply of natural food in the area in which it is operating, the nature of the disability which has caused it to become a man-eater, and whether it's a male or a female with cubs. Those of us who lack the opportunity of forming our own opinions on any particular subject are apt to accept the opinions of others, and in no case this is more apparent than in the case of tigers. And here I do not refer to man-eaters in particular, but to tigers in general. The author who first used the words as cruel as a tiger and as bloodthirsty as a tiger when attempt to emphasize the evil character of the villain of his piece not only showed a lamentable ignorance of the animal he defamed, but coined phrases which have come into universal circulation and which are mainly responsible for the wrong opinion of the tigers held by all except the very small proportion of the public who have had the opportunity of forming their own opinions. When I see the expression as cruel as a tiger or as bloodthirsty as a tiger in print, I think of a small boy armed with an old muzzle-loading gun, the right barrel of which was split for 6 inches of its length, and its stock of barrels of which the stock and the barrels of which were kept from falling apart by lashings of brass wire. Wandering through the jungles of the Terai and Babar in the days when there were 10 tigers to every one that now survives, sleeping anywhere he happened to be when night comes on, with a small fire to give him company and warmth, wakened at intervals by the calling of tigers, sometimes in the distance, at other times near at hand, throwing another stick on the fire and turning over and continuing his interrupted sleep without one thought of unease, knowing from his own short experience and from that of others who, like himself, had spent their days in the jungles, had told him that a tiger, unless molested, would do him no harm. This is the law of the jungle. A tiger, unless molested, would do him no harm. Or during daylight hours, avoiding any tiger he saw. When that was not possible, standing perfectly still until it has passed and gone, before continuing on his way. And I think of him as, on one occasion, stalking half a dozen fowl that were feeding in the open, and on creeping up to a palm bush, and standing up to peer over the bush, heaving, and a tiger walking out on the far side, and on clearing the bush, turning around and looking at the boy with an expression on its face which said clearly as any words, "Hello, kid, what the hell are you doing there?" And receiving no answer, turning around and walking away very slowly without once looking back. And then again, I think of the tens of thousands of men, women, and children who, while working in the fields or cutting grass or collecting dry sticks, pass by day after day close to where tigers are lying up, and who, when they return safely to their homes, do not even know that they have been under the observation of the so-called cruel and bloodthirsty animal. So the tiger in reality is not a cruel and bloodthirsty animal. It keeps to itself. Half a century has rolled by since that day the tiger walked out of the plum bush, the latter 32 years of which have been spent in the more or less regular pursuit of man-eaters. And those sights have been seen which should have caused a stone to weep. I have not seen a case where a tiger has been deliberately cruel or where it has been bloodthirsty to the extent that it has killed without provocation more than it has needed to satisfy its hunger or the hunger of its cubs. So that is very simple. The tiger will only kill if it is hungry or if it has cubs which have to be fed. A tiger's function in the scheme of things is to help maintain the balance in nature. And if on rare occasions, when driven by dire necessity, he kills a human being, or when his natural food has been ruthlessly exterminated by man, he kills 2% of the cattle he is alleged to have killed. It is not fair that for these acts, a whole species should be branded as being cruel and bloodthirsty. I think we'll stop at this point. There's a little more of the author's note, and then we'll move on to the main book. Okay, I decided to finish off this author's note because only one page remains. So, sportsmen are admittedly conservative, the reason being that it has taken them years to form their opinions. And as each individual has a different point of view, it is only natural that opinions should differ on minor or even in some cases on major points. And for this reason, I do not flatter myself that all the opinions I have expressed will meet with universal agreement. There is, however, one point on which I am convinced that all sportsmen, no matter whether their viewpoint has been a platform on a tree, the back of an elephant, or their own feet, will agree with me, and that is that a tiger is a large-hearted gentleman with boundless courage, and that when he is exterminated, as exterminated he'll be. Unless public opinion rallies to his support, India will be the poorer, having lost the finest of her fauna. This is a tribute to the tiger. I'll read it again. There is one point on which I am convinced that all sportsmen will agree with me, that the tiger is a large-hearted gentleman with boundless courage, and that when he is exterminated, India will be the poorer, having lost the finest of her fauna. Leopards, unlike tigers, are to a certain extent scavengers and become man-eaters by acquiring a taste for human flesh when unrestricted slaughter of game has deprived them of their natural food. The dwellers in our hills are predominantly Hindu, and as such, cremate their dead. The cremation invariably takes place on the banks of a stream or river in order that the ashes may be washed down into the Ganges and eventually into the sea. As most of the villages are situated high up on the hills, while the streams or rivers are in many cases miles away down in the valleys, it will be realized that a funeral entails a considerable tax on the manpower of a small community, when in addition to the carrying party, labor has to be provided to collect and carry the fuel needed for the cremation. In normal times, these rites are carried out very effectively, but when disease in epidemic form sweeps through the hills and the inhabitants, the faster they can be disposed of, a very simple rite, which consists of placing a live coal in the mouth of the deceased, is performed in the village, and the body is then carried to the edge of the hill and cast into the valley below. A leopard in an area in which his natural food is scarce, finding these bodies, very soon acquires a taste for human flesh. And when the disease dies down and normal conditions are established, the animal very naturally, on finding his food supply cut off, takes to killing human beings. Of the two man-eating leopards of Kumaon, which between them killed 525 human beings, one followed on the heels of a very severe outbreak of cholera, while the other followed the mysterious disease which swept through India in 1918 and was called war fever. So that is the end of the author's note. We will start with the main book next time, and this is called the section on the man-eaters of Kumaon. So I hope you liked it. See you again. I'm more eager than you to read it and for you to hear it. Bye-bye. Thank you.